I was your typical software developer at a tech startup in Seattle, working 60-hour weeks, living on coffee, and somehow balancing a relationship with my girlfriend Allison. For 3 years, I thought we had built something perfect, the kind of relationship other people envied. Then came that Thursday evening when I accidentally glimpsed strange text messages on her phone. But nothing prepared me for what I overheard from our bedroom. There she was, laughing with her friend. "He is so clueless," she said between giggles. "Jude would never suspect a thing." That moment changed everything. If you are watching this from somewhere you have felt betrayed too, hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments if you have ever had that gut feeling something was not right. I promise this story might help you trust those instincts. Allison and I met at a housewarming party, thrown by our mutual friend Kyle. I had just moved to Seattle for my new job, and barely knew anyone. She approached me while I was awkwardly standing by the snack table, pretending to be fascinated by the chip selection. With her confident smile and quick wit, she immediately put me at ease. That night I learned she was a marketing executive at a competing tech company, loved hiking, and had a contagious laugh that made everyone around her smile. "We should get coffee sometime," she suggested, as the party wound down. I assumed she was being polite, but she actually texted me the next day. Our coffee date at this quirky local place, called Bean There, turned into dinner when neither of us wanted the conversation to end. We connected over our shared love of obscure indie films, passion for the outdoors, and similar upbringings in small Midwestern towns. By the time I walked her to her apartment that evening, I was already mentally canceling my weekend plans to see her again. Things progressed quickly after that. Weekend hikes in the Cascade Mountains, cooking experimental recipes together, and introducing each other to our respective friend groups. 6 months in it felt like we had known each other forever. At the 1-year mark when my lease ended, she suggested I move into her spacious apartment downtown. It made perfect sense. We spent every night together anyway, and the thought of seeing her every morning made me happier than I could express. Our routine became the envy of our friends. While they complained about their tumultuous relationships, Allison and I seemed to have it all figured out. Saturday mornings started with trail runs, followed by brunch at our favorite diner. Sundays were for meal prepping and planning our week. We supported each other through promotions, celebrated victories together, and provided comfort during inevitable setbacks. I helped her prepare presentations for important clients, and she patiently listened to me ramble about coding problems until I worked through solutions. We even started discussing our future together in concrete terms. Marriage was definitely on the table. We had casual conversations about ring styles and potential venues. We toured open houses just for fun, but took notes on features we both liked for our future home. I fully trusted her. We shared passwords to streaming services, had each other as emergency contacts, and knew each other's banking information. It never occurred to me to be secretive or protective. My parents adored her when they visited from Ohio. My mom pulled me aside after dinner one night and whispered, "She is the one, Jude." I had already known that, but having my family's approval just confirmed what my heart had decided long ago. Her family was equally welcoming when I visited them in Chicago over Christmas. Her father, a retired accountant, took me fishing and casually mentioned family heirlooms that would someday be ours. The first signs that something was off were so subtle, I nearly missed them. About 6 months before everything fell apart, Allison started working later. Not every night, but enough that our dinner routine was disrupted several times a week. "Big client," she would explain with an apologetic kiss on my cheek. "The marketing campaign launches next month, and everything has to be perfect." I believed her, of course. Why would I not? She had always been dedicated to her career, and I admired her work ethic. But then came the password change on her phone. For 3 years we had known each other's passcodes, not because we snooped, but because it was convenient when driving or cooking with messy hands. One day I picked up her phone to check a restaurant address, only to find that the familiar pattern no longer worked. "Oh, company security protocol," she explained casually. They are making everyone use biometrics and unique passwords that change monthly now. Corporate paranoia. Again, it made sense. My company had similar security requirements. The video calls while she traveled for work became less frequent too. Previously, we would talk every night when she was away, often falling asleep with our phones propped up beside us. Now she would text instead. Too tired for a call tonight, meetings ran long. Love you. I missed seeing her face, but understood the exhaustion that came with business travel. Then there was Taylor, a new colleague she mentioned increasingly often. Taylor and I are working on the Nielsen account, or Taylor suggested this amazing restaurant for the client meeting. Despite how frequently this person appeared in conversation, I never met them. Whenever the team had social events, Taylor seemed to be conveniently absent, or I was too busy with my own deadlines to attend. I started questioning myself. Was I being possessive, paranoid? I had never been the jealous type, and I did not want to become that boyfriend who questioned his girlfriend's every move. One night after she canceled our anniversary dinner reservation due to an emergency client meeting, I tried to discuss my feelings. I just miss you, I said carefully. It feels like we are both so busy lately that we barely connect. Her response was swift and cutting. Are you serious right now? I am killing myself at work, and instead of supporting me, you are making me feel guilty. I thought you were different, Jude. I immediately backpedaled, apologized, and promised to be more understanding. That weekend, I planned an elaborate makeup dinner at home and bought her a bracelet she had been eyeing. I convinced myself that I was the problem, that my insecurities were creating issues where none existed. I redoubled my efforts to be the perfect, supportive boyfriend. The Chicago trip was what finally opened my eyes. Allison was scheduled to attend a 3-day marketing conference. She had been excited about it for weeks, mentioning keynote speakers she was eager to hear and workshops she planned to attend. The conference was scheduled from Wednesday to Friday, but she decided to fly out Tuesday evening to settle in and prepare. On Thursday morning, she texted me a selfie in front of the conference center. Something about it seemed off, but I could not place what. That evening when we spoke briefly, she mentioned attending a panel discussion on digital marketing trends and networking with potential clients afterward. The conference has been incredible, she gushed. So many valuable connections. I will have to stay out networking tonight, so I might not be able to call again before bed. I wished her luck and told her I was proud of her. After hanging up, I opened my laptop to finish a coding project. Since we shared an Apple ID for our calendar and cloud storage, her laptop automatically backed up to our shared account. I had never thought to look through her files. That would have felt like an invasion of privacy. But when I opened the cloud to save my own work, a notification popped up backup from Allison's MacBook Complete. Without really thinking about it, I clicked on the recent backup folder. I was not looking for anything specific, just curious about her conference presentations maybe. What I found instead stopped my heart. There was a hotel confirmation email, but not for the Hilton where the conference was being held. It was for the Langham, a luxury hotel across town. And the reservation was not just for Tuesday through Friday. It was for the entire week through Sunday. She had told me she would be home Saturday morning. With my heart pounding, I dug deeper. There were restaurant receipts for dinners for 2 at upscale restaurants. Dinners that happened on nights she told me she was attending conference events. The final blow was an email confirmation for a spa day for 2 at the hotel scheduled for Saturday, when she was supposedly flying home. I sat staring at my screen, feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath me. I wanted there to be an explanation. Perhaps she was planning a work retreat with a colleague after the conference. But deep down I knew. I did not have to wait long for confirmation. The following day, Friday, Allison texted that her final conference day was going well. But according to her airline reservation, which I found in her email, she was not flying home until Sunday evening, not Saturday morning as she had told me. That Friday evening, while I was still processing this information and deciding what to do, my phone pinged with a text, "Surprise. Finished early and caught an earlier flight." Be home in an hour. Cannot wait to see you, I panicked. I was not ready to confront her yet. I needed time to think, to plan what to say, but there was no avoiding it now. I quickly closed her files on my laptop and tried to compose myself. When I heard her key in the lock an hour later, I braced myself for what would surely be a difficult conversation. But she was not alone. A female voice I recognized as her friend Jessica accompanied her into the apartment. They were laughing as they entered, seemingly unaware that I was home working in our home office with the door nearly closed. He seriously has no idea, Jessica asked, her voice carrying easily through our apartment. Allison's laughter was cold and unfamiliar. None. It is almost too easy. Jude trusts me completely. My blood ran cold as I realized they were talking about me. I stayed frozen in my chair, unable to move or announce my presence. What about the Chicago trip? Spending the whole week with Tyler, instead of at the conference, was risky, Jessica said. Tyler. Who was Tyler? Then it hit me. Taylor. There was no Taylor. There was Tyler. The conference was real. I just attended the morning keynotes to take photos and get the materials. Spent the rest of the time with Tyler at the Langham. Jude thinks I was networking every night. And your boss? Is that still happening too? Allison laughed again. On and off. Depends on his wife's schedule. But Tyler is more fun. And he knows the situation, unlike poor, clueless Jude. You do not feel bad. You have been with Jude for what, 3 years? There was a pause. I held my breath, some small part of me hoping she would express remorse or say it was all a joke. Sometimes, Allison admitted, he is sweet, but so boring, so predictable. He would do anything for me, which was cute at first, but now it is just pathetic. He would never suspect a thing. I could probably do this for years, and he would still be planning our wedding. The physical pain was immediate and overwhelming. I felt nauseated, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. My hands shook as I gripped the edge of my desk. Every instinct screamed at me to confront them both, to demand explanations, to make a scene. But some deeper part of me kept me rooted to my chair, listening as they continued to dissect my ignorance and her various affairs. Multiple affairs, not just Tyler and her boss. There had been others. Some one-night stands during business trips. An ex-boyfriend when she visited her family in Chicago last Christmas, while I stayed in Seattle to finish a work project. By the time they moved from the kitchen to the living room, turning on the TV and opening wine, I had heard enough. I silently closed my laptop and sat in the dark, tears streaming down my face, processing the complete destruction of what I had thought was my future. After about an hour, Jessica left. Allison called out, Jude, are you home? I quickly wiped my face and called back that I was working in the office. She did not come in to greet me, just shouted that she was tired from her trip and was going to bed early. I waited until I could hear her steady breathing from our bedroom before I emerged. Looking at her sleeping peacefully, I felt like I was seeing a stranger. Who was this person I had loved so completely? Had any of it been real? That night I slept on the couch, claiming I did not want to wake her. The next morning I began my investigation in earnest. With the fragments I had overheard as a guide, I checked our phone records, finding patterns of calls to numbers I did not recognize during times she claimed to be working late. The cloud account revealed more. Photos she had never shared with me, taken in places she had never mentioned, visiting often with a tall, dark-haired man I assumed was Tyler. There were screenshots of hotel reservations, restaurant confirmations, even spa appointments. A parallel life she had been living alongside our relationship. Most damning was a secret credit card statement I found while searching through our filing cabinet for our lease agreement. A card in her name I had never known about, with charges that told the story of her deception hotel rooms in Seattle on nights. She was working late, jewelry purchases that had never been gifts to me, rideshare receipts to addresses I did not recognize. As I assembled the timeline, the devastating truth emerged. She had been cheating for at least a year, possibly longer. Our entire relationship was built on lies. The woman I had planned to propose to in the coming months had been systematically deceiving me while I remained devoted to her. After the initial shock and pain clarity emerged, I needed to decide how to respond. My first impulse was confrontation, to throw the evidence in her face, to demand explanations, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain I was experiencing. I imagined scenarios where I exposed her to our friends, to her workplace, to her family. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that a dramatic confrontation would only give her more power. It would show her how deeply she had hurt me, and from what I had overheard, that might even satisfy some twisted part of her. More importantly, it would not undo the betrayal or heal my pain. What I needed was a clean break that preserved my dignity and self-respect. I decided that instead of a fiery exit, I would simply disappear from her life, as completely as she had disappeared from mine emotionally. No arguments, no tears, no begging for explanations I already had. Just gone. I consulted with a lawyer friend, discreetly explaining my situation. Since we were not married, the legal entanglements were minimal. Our lease was the main concern, but I was willing to continue paying my share until it ended in 3 months rather than deal with the complications of breaking it early. With legal matters understood, I began preparing my exit. I found a small but comfortable apartment across town, signing the lease and paying the deposit from my personal savings. I requested a week off work, claiming a family emergency. Over the next few days, while Allison was at work, I quietly moved my important documents, irreplaceable items, and a few essentials to my new place. I was careful not to raise suspicion. I took only what was clearly mine, and nothing that would be immediately noticed. I transferred exactly half of our joint savings account to my personal account, leaving her share untouched. I made lists of shared items I would leave behind and their approximate values in case there were disputes later. Throughout this process, I maintained a facade of normalcy. I smiled through dinners where she recounted fictional work events. I nodded with apparent interest as she suggested weekend plans she probably never intended to keep. I even managed to kiss her goodnight, fighting the revulsion I now felt at her touch. Every moment was an act, but I reminded myself it was temporary. Just a few more days of pretending and then I would be free. I reached out to my closest friends, not sharing details yet, but letting them know I might need support soon. I contacted my family, letting them know I would be changing my living situation and would explain more when I could. Everyone sensed something was wrong but respected my request for space until I was ready to talk. The final day arrived, a Friday when Allison had plans for a girls' night with Jessica. Based on what I now knew, she was likely meeting Tyler. Before she left, she kissed me goodbye and said, "Do not wait up. I might be late. Have fun." I replied, knowing it was the last thing I would ever say to her. Once she was gone, I sprang into action. I packed my remaining clothes, electronics, and personal items. I left all the furniture we had bought together, the appliances and household items. My goal was not to clean her out, but to extract myself with minimal drama. On the kitchen counter, I left a simple white envelope containing a letter and copies of some of the evidence I had gathered. The letter was brief but clear. "Allison, I know about Tyler. I know about your boss. I know about all of it. I heard your conversation with Jessica last Friday. I have seen the evidence in our shared accounts, phone records, and your secret credit card statements. There is no need for explanations or discussions. By the time you read this, I will be gone. Please do not try to contact me. All the best, Jude." I took one final look around the apartment that had been my home for 2 years, placed my key next to the envelope, and walked out. As I loaded the last of my boxes into my car, I felt a complex mix of emotions, devastating loss, but also a strange sense of freedom. The relationship that I thought defined my future was over, but so was the lie I had been living. That night in my new apartment, surrounded by boxes and the bare essentials, I blocked Allison on my phone, email, and all social media. I sent brief messages to my closest friends and family, explaining that Allison and I had broken up due to her infidelity, and that I had moved out. I requested space and time before answering questions. Then I sat alone in the quiet emptiness of my new place, the weight of everything that had happened finally crashing down on me. I cried until there were no more tears, then fell into an exhausted sleep on a mattress on the floor, my first night of many as a single man again. The aftermath was exactly as chaotic as I had expected. According to friends, when Allison returned home around 2 in the morning and found my letter, she called me repeatedly, each call going straight to voicemail. She sent dozens of texts and emails that bounced back as undeliverable. By morning, she was frantically contacting our mutual friends, alternating between rage and tearful pleas for information about my whereabouts. Her initial story was that I had overreacted to one mistake, claiming I had misconstrued an innocent friendship. When that narrative failed to gain sympathy, she switched to claiming temporary insanity, work stress, or a momentary lapse in judgment. The full extent of her deception never featured in her version of events. 3 days after I left, she showed up at my workplace. Fortunately, I had already informed my manager about the situation in vague terms, saying only that I had experienced a difficult breakup and might need flexibility with my schedule. When Allison arrived, demanding to see me, security politely but firmly turned her away. The most satisfying consequence came about 2 weeks later. Kyle, our mutual friend who had introduced us, called to check on me and shared some interesting news. Allison had been fired. Apparently, her affair with her boss had violated company policy on disclosure of romantic relationships between supervisors and subordinates. When her boss's wife discovered the affair and threatened to expose them both to HR, he had saved himself by claiming Allison had pursued him inappropriately. Without allies in upper management, Allison was terminated while her boss received a mere warning. Her carefully constructed life began to unravel. Without her executive salary, she could not afford to keep the apartment. Her reputation in our tight-knit industry was damaged, making finding equivalent work difficult. Former friends, now aware of how she had betrayed me, distanced themselves. Even Jessica eventually reached out to apologize for her role in concealing the affairs. While part of me felt a grim satisfaction watching the consequences unfold, I was already focused on my own healing journey. The first few weeks were admittedly brutal. I cycled through grief, rage, and crippling self-doubt. How had I been so blind? Were there signs I had missed? Was there something fundamentally wrong with me that had driven her to seek comfort elsewhere? I started therapy, finding a counselor who specialized in betrayal trauma. Those weekly sessions became my lifeline, as I processed not only the end of my relationship, but the realization that much of what I had believed about the past 3 years had been fiction. What you are experiencing is similar to grieving 2 losses simultaneously, my therapist explained. You are grieving the relationship you thought you had, and you are grieving the future you had planned together. Both are valid reasons for profound grief. Gradually, I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my relationship. I was surprised and touched by how many rallied around me, offering everything from moving help to home-cooked meals to simply sitting with me when being alone became too much. My colleague Rick convinced me to join his recreational basketball league, giving me a physical outlet for my anger and frustration. My college friend Samantha, now a chef, started inviting me to test new recipes, ensuring I ate properly when my own motivation to cook disappeared. I rediscovered old hobbies that had fallen by the wayside during my relationship. I took my dusty camera on weekend photography expeditions, capturing the natural beauty of the Pacific Northwest. I started playing guitar again, finding comfort in the familiar patterns and progressions. I even signed up for a coding boot camp I had always been curious about but had never pursued because Allison thought it would take too much time away from us. Most importantly, I began learning to trust my instincts again. Looking back, I could now see the warning signs I had ignored. Not because I was stupid, but because I had wanted so badly to believe in our relationship. I had dismissed my discomfort, rationalized her behavior, and allowed myself to be gaslighted when I raised concerns. Never again. 6 months after my abrupt departure, something unexpected happened. My company announced they were opening a new office in Austin and needed experienced developers to relocate. I volunteered immediately. The chance to start fresh in a new city away from the memories and possible random encounters with Allison was exactly what I needed. My boss, aware of my situation, fast-tracked my transfer and even included a promotion to team lead. The increase in responsibilities came with a significant salary bump, more than offsetting the higher cost of living in Austin. Within a month, I had relocated to Texas, found a comfortable apartment in a vibrant neighborhood, and begun building a new life. The most surprising positive outcome was how my experience changed my approach to relationships. When I eventually felt ready to date again about 9 months after moving, I entered the dating world with clearer boundaries and greater self-respect. I was more attentive to red flags, more willing to communicate my needs, and paradoxically more open emotionally, because I trusted myself to walk away if things felt wrong. I met Sophia at a tech conference where she was presenting on UX design. Our relationship developed slowly with an honesty and transparency that felt both healing and revolutionary. Early on, I shared what had happened with Allison, not to burden Sophia with my baggage, but to explain why certain things might trigger unexpected reactions from me. Instead of being scared off, Sophia appreciated my openness. "Trust has to be built," she said, "not assumed." Her own experience with a dishonest ex made her equally cautious, and together we created a relationship founded on communication and respect. Looking back now, I can see that Allison's betrayal, while devastating at the time, ultimately freed me from a relationship that was fundamentally flawed. The lessons I learned through that painful experience shaped me into someone stronger, wiser, and more authentic. I learned that walking away quietly was not cowardice, but self-preservation. I discovered that true loyalty cannot exist without respect, and that trust should be earned continuously, not given blindly. Most importantly, I realized that my worth is not determined by someone else's ability to recognize it. The quiet dignity with which I removed myself from a toxic situation allowed me to rebuild on a foundation of self-respect rather than bitterness. If you are watching this and recognizing elements of your own relationship, remember, trust your instincts. That nagging feeling that something is off is often your subconscious processing information your conscious mind wants to ignore. And if you find yourself in a situation like mine, know that walking away is sometimes the strongest statement you can make. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between confrontation and a quiet exit? What would you have done in my situation? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more real-life experiences. Share this with someone who might need to hear that their worth is not determined by how others treat them. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, sometimes the most powerful response to betrayal is not revenge, but reclaiming your peace.